Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here. This week we had just gotten back from the Rocky Mountain Train Show, and we also were in Chicago for the O-Scale meet. Now, over the last two shows, we've actually been asked a lot of common questions, and so in this video I want to address just a couple of those really up front, the ones that are really common. So, are these questions you may have? Let's take a look and find out. Now here in front of me I've got two separate tracks. One is actually being powered through a DC power supply and the other is being powered through a NCE power cab. Now, one of the questions that we get a lot is about running your trains on DC. Now, sometimes some of the questions have come up, and we've seen this question in some various locations, whether it be on social media or a couple of people will ask at shows. But the question is always, can I run my model on DC? And the short answer is yes, because with a DC power supply, you can simply power up the track to around 8 to 10, 12 volts, somewhere around there. 14 volts ideally is about the most you would want. But you don't want to go over 21 volts, because if you go over 21 volts, you can actually trigger the error code that you're going over voltage. And if you actually proceed past 27 volts, you can actually physically damage the decoder. But other than that, it works just like your DCC system. So right here in front of me with this Bachmann power supply, I'm just going to turn the track power up. You can hear this guy fire up. Now, I'm going to grab one of these tablets. Now you'll notice that both locomotives appear on this particular tablet. Now this is the iPad right here in front of me. And I also have the Android over here in front as well. But you can see that both locomotives pull up. Now this is the P&LE, so we're going to go ahead and connect to this one right now. Okay, we're connected. We're going to go to standard. You guys should be able to be seeing this screenshot over here over my shoulder somewhere. But first it's going to collect all data. It's going to make sure all the menus in this particular version of the app match all the settings that's in the locomotive. Now, you can hear that it's really quiet, so we're going to go ahead and go to sound settings. And you can notice that the master volume is quite a bit low. So we're going to go ahead and add this up a little bit more. Now our volume has gone up. But I have full control of the locomotive. So when I want to run in the forward direction, you can see that I'm running. Come to a stop. Now I have of course, my horn, my long horn, short horn, and then when I pull out the menu screen over here, you can see I have all my functions labeled as far as what they are and what the purposes are. So if I want to do the handbrake sound, you can kind of hear the sound of the ratcheting handbrake as it's tightening up. And then when I release it, you hear the sound of it release. But all the functions are labeled here. Now remember, I'm running this on a DC power supply. So again, when I take my DC power supply and I cut it off, once the current keeper extends its life, it's going to run out of power. But if I pick it up, put it over here on the DCC side, now the decoder hasn't technically lost power. I can still run the locomotive on my DCC system right here, just like I did on my DC powered layout. Now, same thing here. When I've got my Milwaukee Road 18, I can grab my DCC throttle. So we're going to select Loco 18. And you can see that I have full control of it using my DCC system. Now, once you do control the decoder through the app, the decoder instinctively will ignore any DCC track commands because it knows that you're coming from the app. And so this is where you would not be able to have somebody steal your locomotive or potentially send commands to your address, because if you're running it on the Bluetooth, you don't want somebody else running your locomotive or sending commands, because the commands are coming from the smart device. Now we're on the DCC track, so you can see that I can grab my locomotive, I can move the locomotive. I'm still running DCC commands when I'm talking to the E8 here, just like this, and I can still run commands to my Pittsburgh Lake Erie engine. So it doesn't really matter where the decoder is getting its power. But once you connect to the app, the decoder is getting its commands from the app. Now, I can go over here and release it. And now it's released. Now I still have no control because I can now pick it up from this guy. Now when I scan for locomotives, you'll notice that the Pittsburgh Lake Erie now comes up. Now I can connect to it. We're going to go over here to multi-train. Now because I haven't tied into this, now both of these locomotives are now going to be following on the app. Now when I want to run my Milwaukee, I have full control, but now I no longer have any control of this on my DCC system because all the commands now are coming from the app. And again, it doesn't matter which system you're using. Now my PLE, I have full control of it again, where I can run the locomotive and everything, and I can transfer it from tablet to tablet back and forth, so that way you can leave a locomotive and then the helper crew can come in and pick it up. So all of this is part of the way you can actually operate and run your trains. Now, with that, when I pick up and leave from here, now this locomotive doesn't have a current keeper, so it's going to wake up in a brand new world. Now when I put it on the track here, my DC power supply, I do have my power supply enabled. So as soon as this reconnects, now we're going to see my Milwaukee Road has come back. It usually helps when you have track power. But it's reconnecting. You can see that I have full control of the decoder here, again, on my power supply. We'll go ahead and fire him up. Now this is a DC power supply. Now one of the ones we recommend here is this Bachmann Train Set Power Pack. It's actually one of the best for operating decoders because there's no embedded signals, there's no pulses or anything else that's embedded inside of there. And what it does is it just sends pure filtered plain DC, which is exactly what the decoders want, so that way nothing's interpreted as a command or a signal, and it doesn't cause any erratic behavior when we're running the locomotive. So now we've got our train. Now you can see I can start running the locomotive, and I have full control of it again on my DC power supply. Now, one of the myths is that if you use it on a DCC system or a DC power supply and operate it through the app, that you can damage the decoder. And that's actually very false. The decoder is basically a Tsunami 2, which was originally designed to be operated on a DCC system, or you can use it using a variable voltage DC power pack. But what happens is that if you're trying to run the locomotive on a DC power supply, you can actually increase, and then that will become a command, so your locomotive would run. Your commands would be limited to basically changes in the track voltage. But the good news is that in order to get this to work this way, we've actually disabled the analog, made sure that DC control is disabled, so it doesn't see that 12 or 14 volts as a command, and then it just sits there because it's not being given a digital command until we connect to the app. And once we connect to the app, now we have, again, full control. So the decoder is using the track for power. So at its heart, it's still a Tsunami 2. You can still run it on DCC. You can still run it on DC power. And then you have the option of being able to run it wirelessly through your Bluetooth device, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet. Now I have my phone over here that I can show off if we need to. We're not going to do that today because I've done a lot with this, but everything we're doing here can be done on these two tablets. Now, the last part of this I wanted to talk about is function mapping. And one of the common questions, and I'm going to go ahead and take this PLE out of the way. We're going to move him out of the way. And we're going to show you how to do this particular function mapping on each of these tablets, just to show you. So like, say for example, we have the nose Mars light. So when I come over here to the functions, you'll come over here and we see F4 is actually the Mars light, and that's flashing a Mars light pattern. But on my tablet, it shows FX4. So let's say we want to move this to the button 5. So on the Android version right here, this has complete function mapping, and we'll get to Apple in just a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit gear settings, and then you can see where it says function remap. And this is where we can go through here. Now we know that the Mars light is on the FX4 lighting output. So we just click that, and you see this box pull up with all the checks of everywhere this can go. So we're going to go ahead and push the 5. So now you can see that the number 5 is checked. The button 25 is unchecked because in this method only one button can control this lighting effect. So we hit save. Now the caveat here is that that doesn't automatically displace what was originally assigned to F5, which is our RPM plus. So if we want to move that, we need to scroll through our list. We need to find our RPM plus, which is right here on the list. You can see 1.285 RPM plus, and you see that that's also assigned to 5 because I can assign more than one effect to a button, but we're going to go ahead and move that. So let's say we want to make RPM plus. We'll follow the Athearn code, and we'll put that on 26, and then we'll save, and then we're going to move the RPM minus from 6 to button 27. Done. Now when we go to our function list over here, you'll notice that on the screen it says F25 is on and off, and you can see that my RPM plus and minus are there, and you can hear the diesel engine changing. But now when I move back to my other screen, you see F5 is unlabeled. We're going to fix that in just a moment, but when I turn on my F5, the Mars light starts to flash. Now the question is, how do I rename it? So we're going to go back to our gear settings, and in this case we're going to see where it says Manage Function Panel. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and you'll see here where it says F5. So now I'll click there, and then I'm just going to type in a name, and this is going to be our Mars light. And then there's the next thing is you see the toggle, and that allows it to become momentary. So if you want the Mars light to be a momentary, you can uncheck that, and then anytime you're pushing and holding the F5, or in this case the Mars light, it'll flash, and then when you release it'll extinguish. The other one is what's called lock name. So this is where if you're renaming the function or the effect to become another lighting function, you're going to want to lock that name, because every time it reads the CVs, it'll put the latest function on each one. But if you want to lock that name, that's what you're going to do. So you're going to hit save. So now, when I come back over here, you're going to see that where my F5 was, you're going to see that it says Mars light. So now when I push the Mars light, my Mars light will come on and off. So this is really, really cool, and it makes it so much easier and faster when you're using the Android tablet. Now, Apple, for example, right now, doesn't fully have this functionality. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect off of this guy. And now we're going to go ahead and connect on our Apple tablet. So short term is you still, in this particular case, do need CVs. But once this is fully finished, there's one module they're still finishing up. But once that's done, this is going to port over here. And all the Apple users, including myself, are going to have all the cool features that are built into the Android app very soon. But for now, I wanted to show you how to do this. So we're going to go to standard. Now it's going to quickly read again all the menus because it doesn't know what has been changed since the last time we used it. We get our OK honk. So now when we come over here, you see that the function 5 still says RPM plus and minus, but it's turning on our Mars light, but it says RPM plus. So the first question is going to be, how do I rename that? Well, on the current Apple version, you're actually just going to pull this out a little bit. And this is where you're going to type in Mars light right here. And then this, function 6, because we moved that, we're just going to take the RPM off. Now we can go to the other one here where we've moved this, RPM, where'd it go? There it is, RPM plus, and then RPM minus. And you can see that now they're actually on the screen properly. So now when I hit this, you hear the diesel engine notch up. And then when I push the RPM minus, you hear the diesel engine notch down. Now, if I wanted to remap and move the things around, we're going to go to our gear settings. And in this case, we're going to go to the CVs. And the function mapping are in CVs page 1. And this is where you can see the CV number assigned to the effect. And remember, the value of that CV equals the button that controls it. So here you'll see CV 1.260 FX4 map actually shows the value of 5. And so if we were to change that to another button. Let's go back to 25 like it was before we started this exercise. Now when I come back over here, now when I turn on my Mars light is not turning on and off. But when I come back over here, turn on my FX4, the Mars light now turns back on. So now I can go in and rename this as the Mars light. And I can save that. And then if we want to move it from here, we can just hit the space and you can see that it goes away. So managing the function panel, this is a key factor in when you're using your locomotives, because the benefit is that you can see the text name of what happens each time you push a button, rather than having to try to remember function 12 does this, function 18 does this, or whatever, and then trying to remember how to access it on your various DCC systems. So this is just a couple of examples of the flexibility of the Blunami, and I hope this has been helpful for you. I know there's a lot of information, but most of this can be found in either previous videos we've done, or you can always watch this again and try it out yourself. But the experience with the Blunami really does help make it more fun and easy for you, so that way you can get the locomotives running the way you want. So that's all I've got for you this week, guys. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any comments, please leave us a comment below. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, so that way you can be notified whenever we put out good content like this. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.